What's good, YouTube? You know who it is. It's your boy, Jason Blaha, representing Jason Blaha Fitness. All right, guys, while we're on the topic of drugs and drug testing in sports, let's jump upon an alternative solution to drug testing, because the truth is, as someone who has worked around this in the past, who has helped athletes pass drug tests for money, I can tell you that no matter what you do, you will never ban anabolic drugs from sports. You will never devise a test that the athletes and the coaches and the medical doctors involved can't be 2 steps ahead of. You will always have drugs in sports, particularly when there's money involved. And when there's millions of dollars involved, there will be designer drugs that are years ahead of the testing. Always has been, always will be. So what's our alternative solution? What's the real goal here? Because there's a reason we ban drugs in sports. There's a reason we test for them. And it's not fair play. Honestly, no one gives a shit about fair play in sports. If we gave a shit about fair play, we would ban the genetically gifted, because they have an unfair advantage. The genetically gifted, if they put in the same amount of work as everybody else, they destroy them on the playing field. They absolutely destroy them. No one else can beat them if they're willing to put in the work. They're unbeatable. Other people can even work harder than them and still get beat by them. So ban the genetically gifted if you want fair play, but no one's interested in fair play. That's not the argument that is made. The argument is made is the health of the athletes and the social ramifications. And here's what I mean. The concern is that if drugs are required to compete in sports, and they are now, believe me, they are required to compete at the upper levels, then athletes are going to be forced to use drugs that might damage their health in order to be competitive with everyone else who is taking them. And that is what the concern is. The other big concern is that when they become so prevalent that they're mandatory, it is going to be trickling down into the high school level, and our kids and our teenagers are going to be tempted to use potentially health damaging drugs. And not just tempted, they will use them, and they do use them now. It's a problem, and I agree that that is actually a problem. So here's your solution. Do we care about the drugs, or do we care about the health of the athlete? So our answer is simple. You know what's easier and you can't beat, you can't cheat? Let's do health blood work tests. Drop all of the drug testing, stop testing for substances. We want our athletes to be healthy. If that's the point, we want our athletes to be healthy, then let's pull blood work. Regular, random fasted blood work to where we test all of their health markers. We test their lipid profiles. We test their liver enzymes. We test their blood pressure, their resting heart rate. We look at all of these factors and we determine if they're healthy or not. Are they at the peak of health or not? And if they aren't healthy, they're banned from competing until their health markers come back in order. That will regulate the drugs that they can use. It will regulate the doses of drugs that they can use. Because if the goal is to make them healthy, then force them to be healthy to compete. Because even if they're taking an anabolic drug that you can't test for on the metabolites, the expensive metabolite test, because the test doesn't exist for it, or they're using high doses of suspension and growth hormone in between the testing windows, and they're taking them and they're tapering down while they're asleep and you can't catch them, they can't beat the effects on their blood work. And if you have a drug like that that lowers your HDL cholesterol, your good cholesterol, and it elevates your triglycerides in a dose-dependent manner, you're going to limit the amount of that drug they can take. In some cases, the drug taken at any dose will negatively affect those and push them out of the normal range. And if that's the case, they're going to have to come off that drug completely to pass that lipid profile test, or they're going to have to regulate the dose down to a point to where it's no longer harming them very much, so where they're still healthy in order to beat the test, because those things happen in a dose-dependent manner. There might be a drug, and there are drugs that do this, that at 100 milligrams or 200 milligrams a week don't cause those effects, but at 500, it destroys lipid profiles. It destroys the health. So we test the health markers. Same thing with blood pressure. If they have a drug that elevates blood pressure and they take too much of it and their blood pressure goes up, they're going to have to come back down. They might have to lower the dose for a month or 2 months before they can pass and play again. So you will force the athletes to be conservative in what they use. You will force them to be healthy and stay healthy, and they'll figure out when they're failing these various tests that they've got to back down with their own. They're going to have to come off some of this stuff that they're taking, even if it can pass the drug test, in order to pass the health testing. And this will actually help find athletes who might have genetic issues that are causing them health problems and help them address those as well. So it's overall in the best interest of the athletes to do this. It will remove the nonsensical, useless dog and pony show drug testing, and it will actually get to what is important, the health of our athletes, and it will actually eliminate it at the high school level also, because these high school kids won't be able to pass most of these health marker tests because they're not going to know how to use the drugs well enough to deal with it. And just about any of them who start taking a lot of these drugs are probably going to fail the blood pressure test, things like that. So it's a good way to weed it out at the high school level as well. So by doing this, you're going to force healthy athletes to exist. You're going to force them by default to regulate drugs that you can't detect with the testing, or that they know how to dose and time to get around the testing. You're going to force them to be so conservative with this stuff that they have to maintain good health, which is the actual real concern. So instead of all the drug testing, let's test health markers. Let's test lipid profiles, liver enzymes, blood pressure, resting heart rate, all the things that we actually care about, the reasons that we don't want these athletes on the drugs, because that's what's really important. And that would be a much more effective and useful and utilitarian way to handle this, rather than the drug testing that we do right now that doesn't work. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.